And so imagine that we have a sound coming in. I'm just going to make this very simple. Let's say that it's 100 hertz. What does that mean? That means that the particles are vibrating 100 times a second. So we have a 100 hertz sound. That would sound actually quite low. That's a low pitch. So the air is vibrating 100 times a second. That's going to cause the tympanic membrane to vibrate 100 times a second. It's going to cause the ossicles to vibrate at 100 hertz. The fluid in the hair cell to swish back and forth at 100 hertz. The hair cells themselves are going to be vibrating back and forth 100 times a second at 100 hertz. And so the electrical signals they send are going to be going with that exact same frequency, 100 little bursts of electrical impulses every second. That's a little bit of an oversimplification. That's basically how transduction works. We have taken the information, 100 hertz, the specific vibrational pattern of the sound wave. We have run it through this entire system. We've vibrated the tympanic membrane and the ossicles and the fluid in the cochlea, that sensation. And then the fluid in the cochlea swishes over the hair cells vibrate, and then finally that same exact information gets transduced. It gets sent as an electrical signal down the auditory nerve. So now it's finally electricity, which is the language that the brain can speak. Yay. And the brain is going to be able to receive it. The part of the brain that is really responsible for receiving and perceiving and making sense of auditory, that sound impulses, is the temporal lobe. Kind of makes sense because the ear would be right about here on a person, right? So the temporal lobe is right there. Now, other lobes also are responsible for this. The work gets shared amongst them. The brain is a highly complex, interconnected organ. The parietal lobe has a little part to play. This area called Wernicke's area has a huge role to play in the realm of language. So the temporal lobe, and in some cases, and to some degree the parietal lobe, those are the parts of the brain responsible for perceiving the information. Now, as far as exactly how that happens, now think about this. This is actually mind-blowing to me. How is it possible that I speak the word sound? I speak that word, sound, and it travels through the air with a specific wave pattern, something like that. I don't know, that's a crazy wave pattern. That wave pattern carries information. It travels through the air, causes air particles to vibrate. That's the sound wave. And that's going to cause my tympanic membrane to vibrate with the exact same pattern. It's going to cause the ossicles in my ear to vibrate. That's going to cause the cochlear fluid to vibrate. Do you remember what that's going to cause to vibrate? Yeah, the hair cells are now vibrating, and then finally the hair cells transfer that to an electrical signal in your brain. How in the world is the brain capable of taking that raw electrical data, that electrical signal, and kind of translating it, unpacking it back into the word sound? I don't know. It's absolutely bizarre to me. This is the realm of cognitive neuroscience. So if anyone out there wants to go tackle some of the biggest, most difficult questions in science today, please go be a cognitive neuroscientist. Come back in about 20 years and tell me what you found, because this is wildly fascinating to me, how exactly the brain is capable of perceiving an electrical signal that came from all these vibrations. It sounds like science fiction. It sounds crazy. It sounds like a fantasy story. But this is how sensation, how perception, how it would work, but that's exactly how it works. How, though, does an electrical signal get translated by a giant hunk of meat, basically? I'm sorry, your brain is just wet electrical meat. How in the world does that lead to things like understanding and memory and emotion and concepts and ideas? I have no clue. It's fascinating. It's wildly fascinating to me. Maybe you can go be a cognitive neuroscientist and figure it out.